Hello, everyone. Hello to the LinkedIn community, and welcome to the second episode of the Summer of Platform Organizations webinar series. I'm extremely excited to have all of you here and create a platform for open discussions on the future of organizing. I'm Shruthi Prakash, your co host for this discussion, and I'm thrilled to have Luca Ruggeri with us. Luca is one of the founding members of Boundaryless and is the platform design micro enterprise lead at the organization. He comes with extensive experience in planning and implementing platform strategies across multiple industries and organizations from around the world. Today, he'll be facilitating the webinar for us. In our first episode, we covered the topic of venture building and platform organizations. And today, I'm happy to share that we'll be talking about data products and platform organizations. We have a panel of some of the best industry veterans with us who have been kind enough to join us right at the end of the week on a Friday. So I'm really thankful for that to begin with. And today, to discuss on the topic of data products and platform organizations, we have Paolo Plater, who's the CTO and co-founder at Agile Lab, and Andrea Gioia, who's the partner and CTO at Quantica and co-founder at Blind Data. As most of you know, at Boundaryless, we create open source frameworks and knowledge pools for platform design and entrepreneurial organization development and support a global community of organizations, institutions, and individuals through our workshops, trainings, and consulting services. We've been at the forefront of this for over a decade now, and I'm excited to be a part of this journey. Before we begin this webinar, I would also like to nudge our listeners to keep this session interactive. So please drop in your questions, thoughts, or feedbacks that you might have in the comment section in the webinar. We'll be happy to take it up along with our guests as well. And before we start, I'd also like to inform all the listeners that we have an online workshop on strategies and structures for product and portfolio innovation. And we'll be sharing a special discount code of 15%, which will be shared at the end of this episode. So do stay on and do share your feedback on this session as well in the comment section again. And before any further ado, so let's get started. Luca, over to you.
Thank you, Shruti, and thank you, Andrea and Paolo, for joining us. So I know that for Southern European, this is also a very tricky period because it's a formal end of the holiday period, the vacation period. So I mean, we are all thinking about memories of the past vacation and preparing for the rush of the end of the year. So the next 3 or 4 months that typically are very, very hot. So, nevertheless, thank you to all of you for joining us. So, today's concept is really a passion have. I mean, you know that engineers, they typically have strange passions. Data products, AI, and platform organization, as you see, and as we will explore today, have a lot of overlaps and a lot of synergies. And the opening perspective, so the opening framing is that I leave our guests to explain us what is data mesh and what are data products because they are much more expert than me. What I can bring in as an expertise is the point of view on platform products and on platform organizations. And when we mention platform organizations, we are not only calling them the companies who are running a platform business model or a platform product, because they, by definition, should become a platform organization so that they can exploit the maximum value at the systemic level. But platform organizations are also traditional organizations that are adopting for themselves the principles of platform thinking. So they are facilitating the interaction between providers of value and consumers of value. They are reducing the transaction costs and the interaction costs. And then they are also creating evolutionary journeys for the internal unit and facilitating the connection between the internal units and the external units. This is a very general and high level description. But as you might imagine, and this is the topic for today, the more you can base your understanding, your decisions, your practices based on data, on real data, the better it is, because for many, many reasons, I won't listen them. So that's the perspective. Let's start from the easy part. So why data mesh is really overlapping, why data mesh is complementing this vision. I can go first, and then I'll leave it to both of you. Both practices, so designing platform products, designing platform organizations, and studying how data should be considered in an organization all rely to an initial study of what we call the business domains, or the domains in the, I'm explicitly referring or implicitly referring to the domain-driven design practices. Because it's always important to contextualize, to create these bubbles where you can do certain type of design, but then we have the opportunity to make these bubbles interoperate. And of course, using data. How do you see the synergies between all of these approaches? So why also domain driven is relevant? What is data mesh? What are data products? And what's your experience on that? It's a very general question, but basically I'm asking you nothing but tell me why you're here and what's interesting you about data mesh and platform works.
Who goes first?
You go.
I go. Okay, no problem. Okay, when basically decentralization and domain-driven design that you have mentioned, Luca, are two, of course, correlated concepts, but are not exactly the same thing. No, you can do domain-driven design without doing decentralization. But of course, if you are decentralizing, you need to apply at some level the principle of domain-driven design. So the first important thing is to define what is domain-driven design and decentralization within a company. You know, domain-driven design is the idea that is not possible to create a unified model that is able to solve all the problem, all the business cases within a company. A company is structured as a different unit, no matter if it is a platform organization or a more traditional organization. You have different units that have different goals, that talk different languages. So when you create a model to solve a specific problem, you have to use the specific language of the domain, of the unit, and then use this model to create the solution. So the idea of domain-driven design is create multiple model, one model for each problem that you are trying to solve, and the model are bounded in the specific context of the domain that is looking for a specific solution to the business problem. Of course, when you do this kind of modeling, then you have, as you said, multiple bubble, different models, and you can start to distribute the ownership on this bubble to different teams. This team can be teams inside some central function, or better, you can distribute the ownership on this model and the solution built upon of these models toward directly to the domain that create this model and need to use the solution built upon this model in the first place. So distribution and domain-driven design are not the same thing. Sometimes you can also do domain-driven design in a centralized structure, but of course, if you want to distribute the ownership to the edges, to the business domain, to the unit within the organization that are seeking a solution for a specific problem, then you need to do in some way domain-driven design. It's better to do domain-driven design.
And maybe taking from another angle, we can say that domain-driven design is a way to decompose a complex system in modular components where we want to have very high cohesion inside each component, and we want to have low coupling and low friction across the edge. But anyway, and this is valid for organization, software, data, we want to enable the exchange of information or value across these components, so we can move from a system to an ecosystem. So when we talk about data mesh, I think the trick is to apply the domain-driven design to decompose the entire ecosystem of data to provide autonomy to all the, let's say, functions to elaborate their own data, but also we want to enable the transaction that is a core element in a platform ecosystem. So we want to have different function exchanging value with trust. And this is exactly the same also with software, where we have different microservices exchanging events to communicate, or in platform organization to exchange goods in order to do their job and their mission.
Yeah, I got it. You both mentioned very interesting perspectives, and the interfacing problem is also a primary problem in platform orgs, because what we typically preach is that the more you can establish clear interfaces, transparent interfaces between units, between teams, between micro enterprises, the better it is, because you are equalizing in a transparent way what all entities are entitled to do and what they are not entitled to do, and you give them the building blocks, the Lego blocks for creating products and complex value propositions and so on. So if we transfer this concept to data products, and also please help me defining what is a data product in your jargon, how we can help also organization to understand what they can do with data, what is viable today, because you know by your experience, at least this is something I capture from our existing clients. The initial struggle is it's always not at technical level. It starts from the understanding what is a good use case, what is a good business case for adopting data, whatever, and this multiplies by 100x when you apply to AI thing, no? So this is the initial problem. What do you do for your customers in terms of understanding what data product they have, what assets they have, and how they can enable this? Maybe, I don't know, Paolo, you want to go first this time, and then we can
yeah.
move on.
Typically, I do what we do in software. So also with domain-driven design, there are several practices to discover the boundaries of each domain. So I elaborated what I call data product flow. That is, let's say, an extension of event storming as methodology in order to discover the data opportunities that a company has. But I want to discover data opportunities strictly linked to the processes of the company, because the final goal of a company very often is process optimization. Also, this is where the AI can play the measure game. So if you have a clear representation of the business processes and you are able to identify the boundaries of these processes, then you can spot opportunities for automation, opportunities for augmentation, or whatever. So typically a data product should solve a data opportunity. So should bring value some way, somewhere in the business process of the company itself. And the data product, let's say, in the end, is a set of information that are strongly curated, that people can really trust, because we are inside a controlled ecosystem, that are understandable, linked with some business concept as well, and they must be strongly connected to some data needs.
Yes, and the data product, for me, data product is a curated data, as Paolo said, but it's basically can see as a software application that expose not transactional functionality, but curated data. And it's also very important in this context, the fact that the data product must guarantee the accuracy, the trust in the data exposed, but also make it simple to compose the exposed data with data exposed by other data product, possibly also across different domains. No, so we do not want to create a silos of data product within a domain that are not interoperable with the data product of other domain. data acquire value when it is reused, but also when it is integrated with other data. No? So the goal of the data product is to create trust around data, but also to make data reusable and composable over time. I also agree with Paolo that it's very important in the data mesh approach not to treat the data asset as we did in the past. So just focusing on storing, creating new data product, a big number of data product, because maybe in the future some use cases will need to use this data product. So an approach that is stock to order. We create a lot of data product. Maybe in the future the use case will come, but instead we need to link the creation of the data product with the use cases. So with an envisioning approach, bottom up, as the ones that Paolo described, or linked the creation of the data product with the business cases that come directly from the business strategy. So I do not do a discovery, but there is a business strategy that needed to focus on some specific success metric. And to do this, I needed to create some initiative, and to support this initiative, I needed to create some data product. The important thing is that the data product is designed to support a use case, but also to be reusable in the future for other use cases. So it's not created with an engineering to order approach. It's not one-to-one with this use case. It's important to make it reusable, because at the end of the day, I want to create a library, a portfolio of reusable data.
And yeah, please go ahead, Paolo. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just to add, very often in the data management space, we have these, let's say, project-based modus operandi, where someone has a need, is asking for budget and driving the implementation without taking the full picture in mind. No? So what Andrea was remarking is, yes, you need to sense the market, you need to understand the needs of people, but then you need to create a product. So in order to create a product, you cannot obviously destroy your vision every time someone is asking something to you, but you need to be consistent with your product vision and adapting the product to the market needs.
Yeah, thanks, Paolo. You have anticipated a third question I would like to ask both of you. So are these data products for internal use only, or they are typically also exposed to the market, so that they can become a value proposition of that organization to their clients?
I go first. I think that in the beginning, data products are created for internal usage. No, as we have said, we created a data product because we want to support specific use cases, and we design them to be reusable for future use cases. But the target is always an internal usage. But of course, when you create a product, you can also quite easily enlarge the customer base and also think to monetize it in the future, selling it outside. Because it is a product, it's designed to be easily consumable, understandable, contain trusted data. So there is no reason why you cannot transitioning a product from an internal market to an external market. Of course, you have to add some extra layer in terms of control, billing, compliance, because you are not using the data internally, but in a larger environment. But the product itself can be used as the base for a product that you want to monetize outside. So I don't see a reason why you cannot do that.
Totally agree. It is important in this picture the additional layer, also because very often data products are based on internal standards that you establish among all the participants in the internal platform. So when you want to target the external world, maybe you need to adapt to international standards or other kind of standards that are required by the market. So I think the additional interface on top of the internal data product is a must one.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So you made me think, because I'm also trying automatically to position all these value proposition that you mentioned inside an organization. So I'm plenty of question, and of course, I mean, Shruti, if there is any question coming from the listeners, please interrupt me at any moment. When I'm figuring out data mesh, I always think it to a kind of a metaphor that could be completely wrong. So don't be afraid in case it is to tell me that I'm completely wrong. But I think that you are all familiar with the no code and low code approaches nowadays. So they are basically, if we oversimplify them, low code, no code approach is trying to transform a product owner into a product builder. So in a very easy way, something like is they are removing the necessity, at least for the first prototypes, to have senior developers, to have a development team to test some hypotheses and to build successfully some MVPs or some tests. With the same metaphor, how I figured it out about data mesh is trying to put the real data users in an organization in condition to be as much autonomous as they can to torture data long enough, so to have data confessing what they were, their assumptions, their ideas, their hypotheses. Is it true in your experience? So are customers today asking you exactly this? So trying to avoid asking the CTO or the CIO to prepare the data report for them, be maybe them marketeers or strategists or the board of managers. So what's your experience? Who are these new users eager for data products?
Yeah, the demand for data mesh and the decentralization is rooted in this pattern. So the central IT was becoming a huge bottleneck from an organization standpoint, because everything related to data had to go through the IT implementation. So in a decentralization movement, you have to provide autonomy, but you also have to reduce a lot of cognitive load from people, because we cannot just shift the cognitive load that now IT has into the business, because it's not going to work. So decentralization and autonomy must be strongly coupled with a reduction of cognitive load. And this is where the IT is still playing the game, because you need to have a platform to enable this decentralization. And this platform should be the one that is reducing the cognitive load for all the participants in the network. We need to make it very easy to build data products in the ecosystem, not only from a technical standpoint, but also from a governance, security, architecture standpoint. So there are so many flavors that you need to put inside a data product. We need to make it as much as easy as possible.
Yes, agree. Look, I'm almost 20 years that I work in the data field, and one of the most frequent question that I have from customer is that we can implement some sort of self-service BI to let the business free to create reporting by themselves. The second one is there a button to export in Excel? So these are the two most frequent questions that I usually receive from customers. Anyway, I agree. Of course, to decentralize, you are pushing a lot of new responsibility on the plate of the domains. And so this is a thing that generate cost and and require more responsibility by the domain, because of course creating a product is more difficult than just doing an ad hoc project to answer and implement a specific business case only internally to the domain. No? So in order to foster the scaling and the adoption of this new approach like data mesh, you need to provide a platform that reduce the friction and reduce the cognitive load of the different product team that work inside the domain. So this team can focus more on the business problem at hand and less on the technological complexity, extra complexity that are needed to put in place in order to implement a product that can be used and reused over time by external user for different use cases by the original one. I think that so low code and no code is very important in a future projection. So when the data mesh has been adopted, of course, and you have a internal data developer platform that simplify the development of the data product, low code and no code became also interesting as the possibility to create a platform that allow the business to compose the different data product already created as a building block. No? So to create a new use case at the beginning, when my portfolio of data product contain a very small number of data product, probably if a new use case come out, there is a lot of probability that I have to implement a data product to support that use cases. That use case. But as soon my portfolio start to become more large, so with more data product inside it, there is a lot of probability that the new use cases can be implemented without doing any more integration, but just recomposing the data product that I have already implemented. No? So data product is a way also to create a composable data architecture. And this composition, because the data product basically should try to speak the language of the business, should be also made using low code, no code, maybe with the help of some agent, intelligent agent, stuff like that. So let the business to compose their application, composing the different data product that I already have in the data product portfolio.
If I can ask, right? So, just want one of you to sort of touch upon how, these data products, like you said, right? Like there's a diversity, there's a portfolio of data products itself. So, how do you see, let's say, the monetization scale? What is the business model that can adapt around it? And where do you see it in terms of scalability and agility in terms of a service or product solution?
Yes, for me it's a fundamental, no, because um, is basically now to compete on a volatile market, company must be very agile in adapt to the changing environment. So it's not anymore so much important how much competitive advantage you have created in the past, but it's more important how you are able to adapt to the changing situation and create a new innovation and adapt to the demand that come from the market. So now the modern economic theory of competitive advantage focus on how a company, it's named the dynamic capabilities of the company, how a company is able to reconfigure its resources and asset to respond to the changing environment. No? And the data product, at least for what is related to data, goes in that direction, no? Because you have a composable module that you can reconfigure very fast. Instead, if you think traditional data lake, the traditional data warehouse, strongly designed to answer to specific question, maybe become very quickly unfit to a new market situation, no? Are not really agile. But if I have a lot of small building blocks that I can recompose very fast, make me more adaptable to the changing environment.
And regarding the internal monetization, maybe of data products, if you were referring to that, I think at certain point in the data mesh adoption, you need to put some money on the data product. But honestly, I think is really the latest state of maturity in a data mesh adoption journey. So at the beginning, it's more important to focus on creating the ecosystem, boost the adoption of people joining the ecosystem and so on. Then later in the later stage, you can add a value on top of it in order to create a real internal market also from a budget standpoint. But I always suggest to do it as the last step in the maturity journey.
Yeah, I mean, sort of leading from that, right? One of the comments that we got was, How do you identify if your tech stack needs CDP or data mesh, and what would be the implications of using each one of them?
Yes. I try to go first. This is a difficult question because usually to understand what is the best approach to implement, even data mesh is not something that can be implemented by the book in the same way in all organizations, but must be keeping the core principle, but must be adapted to the different needs of the specific organization. No? So it's not a framework that can be applied by the book. So it requires time to understand what are the needs of the specific company, and then according to the needs design the best strategy. No, it can be data mesh, can be only managing data as a product without distributing the ownership of the product toward the domain, or can be an approach in between in which you apply managing data as a product, but you only decentralize toward the domain the implementation of specific type of data product, for example, the ones that are more consumer aligned, and instead keep centralized the implementation of the data product that are more source aligned. No? So there are different flavor of data mesh, and to understand what is the right, if you need to do data mesh, and what is the right level of the centralization in your data mesh implementation depends strongly by the business goal of the organization, how much the organization need to scale, what is the maturity, the data management the maturity and culture that the organization already have in place. So it's a journey.
I've been also lucky to work on several different data mesh implementation, also in different cultural landscape. So companies in Italy or in Sweden or in Germany, where the culture of the company itself can be very a point that you need to keep in consideration in order to design the journey for the adoption. Top-down culture versus bottom-up culture, consensus-based versus other kind of leadership. So everything in an organization is contributing in designing the specific journey for the data mesh one. And this is why it's so difficult to buy the data mesh. We can say that it's not possible to buy the data mesh. It's something really, it's a practice. So you need to shape it like software development and many other practice that you can have in your organization. There is no golden path for that.
Okay, well, all good points. So I was trying to make a parallel with the platform organizations now, because the problems that you mentioned are typically the same drivers that are triggering someone in a company to start thinking about, okay, but how we can optimize further our organization. So how, for instance, we can understand where we are creating value, and this maybe become an artifact called micro enterprise. Or in other cases, we can say, well, this is not directly providing value to the outside, so it's not a product, but it's a necessary component that we use in our organization to account for instance, let's say intellectual properties or competitive advantages. And so in that case, maybe we create what we call a node me or a shared service platform that is creating this one. Now, I was thinking that in a data mesh approach, maybe the core unit, the core team that is developing the tools, the infrastructure, and the interfaces, or anything needed to run this infrastructure, could be a node me or could be a shared service platform, and then the users are in directly, let's say, an outpost in the product units, or maybe in the strategy team, or in the board, and so on. So this is really interesting. I would maybe ask you now if you want to tell us something about a vertical case or some real world experience you had about, for instance, I don't know, what aha moment, what trigger, what mindset changing happened to one of your customers before and after applying data mesh, or maybe the trigger point that led them to start thinking about data mesh. So, well, it's a tricky question. So maybe I give you a few minutes to reflect on it. Let's.
But I can go. I think so the turning point is always the IT burnout. I would say. I always seen this starting from the IT, and then realizing that the data mesh and the decentralization in general is a double win, because on one side is unleashing the IT from a lot of burning activities, and on the other side is really enabling the business in achieving their goals. So I typically see the IT also because they are more into this kind of stuff. They learn more about data management practices and patterns. So I always see the IT starting the journey, but then is mandatory to get a buy-in from the business. It's a strategic decision to go in the data mesh. Is not something that can be powered only by the IT and imposed to the rest of the company. So everyone in the company must realize the mutual benefits that you can have, both on IT operation and also in how much you can be more agile and flexible in reaching your business goals.
Well, I have a quick one on this one, Paolo. Sorry if I interrupt you. One of the main principles behind platform organizing is to increase the autonomy and responsibility to all the users, all the adopters, that we call them intrapreneurs, that are willing to take this responsibility and, of course, prove to themselves and to the company that maybe they could do something extraordinary, as if they are an internal startup, something like this. One other key word that is a driver is avoiding or preventing scapegoating. So in most of cases, I think that having anyone in the middle, not between the data processing, the data analysis, and the decision making, it could be a source of, as I said, no scapegoating or problem. So we say, okay, the IT department past me were saying something, but they were wrong, and so on and so on and so on. So I think that this is also a matter of autonomy, responsibility in a positive way, but also avoiding scapegoating, or at least distributing responsibilities. Saying that, okay, it's not me, I'm enabling you, and so then do whatever you want with the data and take your decisions, so that you have autonomy, but also responsibility behind that. So I think it's the same, no?
Yeah. Scapegoating is exactly what is happening in all the organization out there between business and IT, because there is a customer-supplier relationship, and that's to me is the evil for a collaboration. Instead, the keyword is enablement. So how can the IT enable the business to reach their goals without becoming a gatekeeper? Okay, because we don't need to go also too much in the other direction in gatekeeping the business with the platform. There is a golden rule that say that innovation is always happening at the edge. So you need to see this innovation, you need to enable this innovation at the edge. So you need to provide the right freedom degree to the business in order to innovate. If you constrain too much the user, or you provide too much freedom, you are done.
I agree. Let me say that the aha moment that the business usually have arrive when to implement a new business case, there is no need to do a long data integration project, because you already have the product in portfolio to answer to that use case, just composing them. No, this is the aha moment when you have an enough deep portfolio of product and you can demonstrate that new requirement, new business case can be implemented very fast by composition. Is the moment in where the business said, okay, that's a thing. It's true what Paolo said. Usually, the sponsorship initially come from the IT. That, of course, being a bottleneck in a traditional data management approaches, is looking for something else to scale more the management of the data. But I can say that also the business is very tired of the way in which data is has been managed in the past 10 or more years, no? Because we are moving from a moment in which the organization try to centralize everything to have control, reduce cost, optimize efficiency, to moment in which this is not affordable anymore because there is need for more agility. So everything is pushed to the domain, but without a central control. So in a very few time it became a chaos, and then the pendulum moved back to a centralization. So this movement of the pendulum from centralization and decentralization is something that have stressed even the business. So we need to put in place not this bipolar system with on one pole total decentralization without control, and the other pole an economy of scale based on control, but that is not really fast. As in the three economy theory of James Bloom, we need to have in between of these two poles an economy of scope, no? In which everybody manage this not consumable asset in order to create this innovation through harmonization, no? Through reusable object that can be reconfigured to support speed and differentiation, but in a standardized way.
Right. If I can go next, Luca. So just,
Yeah, please.
I mean, I've been listening and I see so many, let's say, similarities of the principles that we talk about, extensively about platform organizations. And now I see, let's say, a good overlap between the principles of data mesh and platform organization. So one of the points that you had mentioned, for example, that it's not a product, it's a practice. And this is something, we also keep sort of speaking about. So just wanted to understand how you see, let's say, these two topics of platform organizations and data mesh sort of aligning naturally, and also ask whether you are adopting any, let's say, principles that are common to both, let's say, like modularity, composability, and so on.
You want to go first?
I go first. Let just say that the manifesto that you have wrote on platform organization, when I read the belief and the principle, you have my buy-in in all of them. No? So, okay, if I have to mention some that are absolutely aligned with the data mesh approach, for sure is successful innovation come from cultivating optionality through economic scope, what I just said before, no? So create this economy between the need of differentiation that come from the domain and the need of control that come from the central IT. Creating this economy of scope is fundamental. And one way to do that in the data world is to manage data as a product and to implement the data mesh principle. And I also like a lot in the principle the one related to the standardization, to the importance of create standard as a mean to innovate. So the standard as not a mean to control, but as a mean to create the foundation to then innovate upon in a very more fast way. So I'm totally aligned, and I think that a lot of points are absolutely in common.
I would add two other principles that to me are really important in a platform economy. One is user protection. So the platform should guarantee the exchange of value among the participants. This is what happened in Amazon or whatever other platform economy. So they are enabling the exchange of value between parties that don't trust each other by default. So also in the data mesh, the platform has this important role. And this could happen in several ways through governance, automation, and whatever. And this is where the IT should focus more, in my opinion, so to become the guarantee that this exchange of value can happen without frustration, so basically frictionless. The other principle is to boost the autonomy of participants. This is so important because when you have autonomy, then you can innovate, you can speed up your process, and you can align your action to the business goals. When you don't have autonomy, you are always constrained by the priority of someone else. Instead, with autonomy, you can really align your data activities to your business priorities.
And if I can add one that is very important for me in this period is encourage common languages, no? Facilitate the representation of common knowledge within a company to guarantee the interoperability of the different part, of the different unit, of the different data products. So the knowledge management, the base knowledge that characterize the company, facilitating this definition, making this knowledge explicit is also very, very important principle for me because otherwise we can have a lot of data products that are interoperable at the technical level, but are not composable because are not simply to understand what they effectively mean and how they are correlated to the core concept that are part of the corporate knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that we totally agree on that. And also common practices are very important, not only to create confidence and to create unity of scope and an economy of scope, as you also mentioned, Andrea, but also it's a good practice to enable or distributing the integration practices at real ecosystem level, because in most of cases, this happens continuously. Each product is composed of some unique features, but also is integrated in some commonly available assets, or we can call them commodities. And a good practice for a product company is also to find ways to transfer the responsibility and the risk also associated to integrating commodity services to the ecosystem itself. So that's why open standards, open interfaces, best practices are also very, very viable, so that everyone is familiar with what you can have. And I know that both of you are also developing data platforms, and you're not only working at consulting practices. So I think that you're also adopting the same principle, as the English native speakers say, you're dogfooding yourself, so you're probably adopting the same practices. I can have a kind of a final question. Then, of course, if you have questions yourself, or if there are other questions coming from the audience, we can take them. My question is simpler, but is referring to frequent use cases, or if you can tell us something about, what is the field of application of data products and data mesh that are more common today with your customer? Because thinking of myself, I can think about marketing. I think that most customers, every time that you need to deal with data, so probably healthcare or sales is probably another big topic. I don't want to mention AI, because AI and data are friends or fools. No? Sometimes they are friends, but sometimes it can become a buzzword. But I would like to listen to your experience. So what your customers are asking mainly about the field of application? Who is the most frequent one? Or if there is a frequent one?
But consider that in general, the application of data mesh is very interesting in large account that have different branches, a lot of merge and acquisition in their history, so a very fragmented data world, no? And because it is not easy from scratch to create a central platform, they are looking to start already from a decentralized approach in which all these branches, all these acquisition with their data platform can be put together and talk basically into an ecosystem. Instead, if we are looking specifically to domain on or use cases, I see a lot of them, and first of all from the finance department, because in a fragmented data world is the most scared one, because when the CFO see different number that come from different department, is not it's became worried about that, and so try to sponsor initiative to have some KPI that are unified. The other department that is really data angry is, of course, is the marketing. It's different from the finance department, because in marketing it's very important to have data updated fast, possibly in real time, from multiple channel to implement on top of that omni-channel data-driven solution. No? And because marketing in the last 5 years, I think it's exploded in the number of application that the marketing department use, is also true that the fragmentation of data within marketing, cross channel and cross application used to implement the different solution is very high. So the need to have a more ordered solution, but also agile to scale is in demand for this department.
In my experience, I confirm finance. I have seen also in manufacturing industry the innovation department having a huge demand of data, because they need to innovate let's say so many aspects of a manufacturing industry. If we think about car makers, the innovation department need to take care of so many different information, and also driven by Data Act. So when you have connected devices, now there is a huge regulation that is imposing a lot of constraints on how you manage the data coming from these devices. So a product approach in that area is really advisable. These are the two other domains that I'm. Another one is ESG. That is a very cross domain across many industries, and ESG. In some countries, there are strict regulation about ESG reporting, and very often this has the need of collecting data from most of departments of the company. So having this composability and this standard interface to retrieve the data is super useful to accomplish this kind of global reporting, putting together so many information.
These are, I mean, really valuable insights, right, for us to see what kind of industries are, let's say, going forward in this direction. Just wanted to ask if you all have any other, as we are coming to the end of the discussion, right? Any other points that you would like to highlight? We also got some comments on how, this is a very socio-technically sort of heavy topic. So, anything on that, or any other, points that you want to bring forward to the webinar for our listeners as well on this topic?
I think we touched a lot of interesting points, super insightful conversation. So it's very interesting, the parallelism also with platform organization. I think it's really clever to combine these two practices. Also because data mesh very often has organization implications. So adopting an organization model that is already founded on the same principle of other platforms that you can build in an organization could be a very good move.
Yes. Yes, probably we have not underlined enough the fact that data mesh is not a technological approach, but is a socio-technological approach. So there is an important part related to the operating model when we talk about managing data as a product, when we are talking about pushing the ownership toward the domain, we are talking about restructuring the organization around this principle. No? So this is very
Right.
important. In my opinion, if you are start approaching this kind of topics or paradigm to manage data, you can start from the idea of managing data as a product, because usually this is a good idea for every type of company, because managing data is a complex endeavor, and so humans, whenever to manage something complex, what to do is divide it in a sub part that are more manageable, and this is performed in data managing data as a product. So not a big enterprise solution to manage all the data, but single modules that can cooperate, and this can be applied for me in any kind of organization that have a complex data problem. Then the decentralization is something that can be considered according to the scaling need of the particular organization. So if your organization is very large, required to scale, and is already quite mature in data management, maybe it's a good way to follow from the beginning. Other way, you can wait and see if you want to decentralize more or less.
Well, yeah, I think we have enough material for maybe another webinar in the next month, because yeah, you're both right. So we didn't discuss so much about cultural shifting, cultural changes, and the interfaces. Of course, I mean, I was taking as a let's say a precondition that also platform organizations are based in interaction through interfaces. In most of cases, in a typical platform organization, this interface is a contract that is established either between the unit and the mother company, in case the mother company is giving resources, assets, budget, and then, of course, the entity is sharing profits or revenues, or maybe between units. So you have contracts between two different product units that are creating a compound product. But you're right, data itself, or a data product, can be one of the interfaces between, again, the company and the product entity, or between product entities. So you're right. This is something we can explore, as well as the composition of units and teams and the responsibilities in a company, because we develop the responsibilities in terms of product responsibilities or business responsibilities in a platform org, but also data mesh is plenty of roles, no? Data custodian, data stewards, data governance, data leader. So it's a huge list, and I'm sure that we can maybe try to map all these roles into the corresponding unit or a team topology, or maybe into a key responsibility. So this is something, I mean, it's we have a lot to work on. So thanks so much for this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, thanks, Luca, for hosting. And of course, thank you to both our panelists for joining in today. It was an extremely interesting discussion, right? And like you mentioned, this overlap is something that's so underexplored that there is so much scope for us to, dive further in. Like I mentioned at the start of our webinar today, I want to tell you a little bit about the program that Boundaryless is conducting. So we are doing a series for series on strategies for product portfolio innovation. So it's happening in September. It's an online course that's happening, and I hope you can see my screen. And we have a special discount code for all of you here. So it's for 15%. And it's an extremely, enriching program. And I've attended a lot of boundaryless programs myself, and I'm, I can vouch for the quality of content and experiences that come out of this. So yeah, I hope that we can see a lot of you listeners there as well. And that's pretty much it from us. I hope that all of you enjoyed this webinar on data products and platform organizations. Thank you so much for all of you for joining. The next set of webinars, we have two more webinars that are upcoming, one on leadership in entrepreneurial and ecosystemic platform organizations, and the second one on effective team dynamics to support platform organization strategies. And we hope to see all of you there as well. And we hope that you've gained something from your time with us today. And thank you so much. The entire webinar's recording with its keynotes and visuals will be shared via LinkedIn, YouTube, and all our other media platforms. So do keep an eye. And until we speak again, remember to think boundaryless. Thank you all for joining.
Bye bye.